Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.
You say you want a revolution, well, you know.
Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show. 6:36, sunny day here in central Arkansas. Well, it's been almost 5 months since the tragedy in Newtown, and liberals and Democrats in Washington have failed at one attempt at gun control, and then there's news Harry Reid is trying it yet again, trying to get signatures for further gun control, and that's not the answer. It's not the guns, it's the person. And one person who understands that and has the facts and figures to back up that statement more than anyone I've read ever, Glenn Beck. You know, his radio show follows mine here on 96.5, and a media empire that he has, and his latest book, Control, looks at just that issue. Glenn joins me this morning. Glenn, thanks for joining us.
Not a problem, Alice. I tell you, you just started with the song Revolution, and I don't know how many people know the story behind Revolution, but it is so appropriate for people to know the story now. You know, this is it was written at a time when the world looked pretty much like it does now. Our leaders were being shot. The world was up in upheaval. The communists and the socialists were rioting in France again. We had hippies on the streets here. And the Bill Ayers types, the people who said, you know, we're gonna take over. It's time to plot. They came to the Beatles and said, look, you have so much influence. You guys can help. Why are you standing on the sidelines? And they said they'd think about it. And John Lennon went, and you know, they went to Tibet or wherever it was they went, and he thought about it, sat there on a mountain for a while, and that's when he wrote Revolution. And he said, you know, you carry around your pictures of Chairman Mao. Well, we don't want any of that. And he talks about, you know, you want a revolution. We don't want a revolution. You want to change the Constitution. Well, you need to change your head. So his answer was that we always think of revolution as a hippie anthem. It's exactly the opposite. And then we went from that song right to talking about how Harry Reid is going to do it again. Well, yes, these guys do not give up. They wanted a revolution. They wanted to change the Constitution. It's the same exact people. If you look at who Nancy Pelosi was, you know, how old is she? Gee, she fits right into the hippie generation. Harry Reid, I don't know what happened to him. He was a decent guy for a long time. He went to Washington, D.C. Jeff Flake is another one who is all of a sudden he's gone off the reservation. I don't know what happens in Washington, but there is a revolution going on. And all we're saying is, you want a revolution, you want to carry around pictures of Chairman Mao, maybe we ought to change your head.
Exactly, and they're wanting a revolution. They want to transform America. And in this issue of mass shootings and gun violence, we know more and more it's the man and it's not the gun. And you say we need to look at not at gun control. We need to look at the why these things happen and not the how.
Look, the situation with mass shootings is amazing. First of all, gun crime down 39%. Down since 1993, 39%. Hello? Then you have, on top of that, mass shootings, and I can't remember the exact number, but it's like 539 mass shootings since in the last 30 years. In the same time period in the last 30 years, it was just over 3,000 deaths from lightning strikes. We keep saying, oh, yeah, well, that's as likely as, you know, lightning striking. Well, 3,000 people were struck by lightning. Only 530 or 513 people were killed in a mass shooting. It's more rare by far than getting struck by lightning. The quintessential example of that's never going to happen. I mean, look at what we're doing. We're uprooting all of society. We're turning everything upside down for something that is much more rare than a lightning strike, and trying to make people believe that it happens all the time when it clearly doesn't. Now, is our society becoming more coarse? Yes. Why? Well, I don't know. Let's look at what they're teaching in the schools. Let's look what they're not teaching in the schools. Let's look at, I just saw, and I haven't seen the whole list yet, Reader's Digest did this list today of the 100 most trusted people. The top 5 are all Hollywood celebrities. You have to go down to the 63rd person before you get to anybody who is of religious nature. That's a problem with our society.
It is.
And at the end of the book, the last, 30 pages or so, talk about it really is coming from Hollywood. It really is coming from the gaming world. The culture is different. You know, last night or the night before on TV, I showed what had happened in the 1960s and all the roles that were played. But Martin Luther King was the leader of that. That was a preacher, and a real preacher. He was co-opted by the labor unions and by the hippies, and the cultural icon of the 60s became dope-smoking hippies, when the cultural icon should have been God, because God is what moved upon America and changed people's hearts, not the hippies. Now the hippies are in charge, and we don't have a God-centered country anymore. When you put those same people in charge and then you stir things up at the bottom of the society, you're headed for real trouble.
Right.
You're headed for violence and Kent State going really wrong.
Right. My guest is Glenn Beck, and we're talking about his new book, Control. I have one more question for you. I know your time is short, but in your book, your preface is to Martin Luther King, and you talk about him preaching nonviolence. And he owned several guns, but was
not only preaching nonviolence, and this is just who the book is dedicated to, and nobody knows this. In 1956, Martin Luther King knew what was coming. He knew history. He knew that the Southern Democrats were the ones after Reconstruction all the way through. They were the ones that were trying to take away guns from African Americans. And every time they would take away guns from African Americans, the Klan would come in. You couldn't defend yourself. You can't be free if you don't have a gun. You can't protect yourself if the system is set up against you. And they take away your gun. Well, that's what would happen. So he knew history, and he also knew his responsibility as a father. What the media and nobody else will tell you, Martin Luther King owned a lot of guns. He had several guns in his house. But in 1956, he went to the police, and the Alabama police you had to fill out an application, and you had to be approved so you could carry a gun and be a concealed carry permit holder. Well, for his protection, the police department rejected that.
Right. He was denied a concealed carry.
Remember, this is gun safety. That's exactly what they're trying to call this now. Not gun control, but gun safety. For your protection, we have to take away the guns. Well, if anybody thinks that Martin Luther King was not allowed to carry a concealed weapon for his protection, you're out of your mind.
Right.
It was all about control.
Right.
And once we start to know the facts, once we really know what's happening, the numbers, who's done it in the past, what has it led to in the past, we can't wait for the NRA to defend this. The NRA is under attack unlike I've seen before. They are going to try to bankrupt the NRA. They're going to try to isolate the NRA. They're going to try to shame and humiliate and do whatever they can to smear the NRA to cut the legs out from underneath it. If we don't know the facts, we're toast.
One last question. You had a phenomenal speech at NRA. I've watched it several times, and one of your points was, it brings to mind a situation we had in Jonesboro here in Arkansas in 98. 2 boys go to their school, flip the fire alarm, their friends run out, they kill 5 kids. And my thought was, the guns haven't changed, the ammo hasn't changed, but as you mentioned at the NRA speech, what's different in society is not the guns, it's the person, the culture, and the cavalier attitude we have toward violence.
It is, the culture has changed, and let me just be real frank with you. I told my staff a long time ago, when you hear me start talking about God, you know we're going to be in trouble. When you start hearing me use the word Jesus on the air, we're in real trouble. When you start hearing me say Jesus Christ, we're in deep trouble, because it's unpopular to say Jesus Christ in today's society. but only Jesus Christ is going to save us. I was reading the scriptures last night. Read First Corinthians 1 through 3. Tell me that doesn't have all of the answers in it. Tell me that doesn't explain the problem. We have people who think they're wise. We need more foolish people. And when I say foolish people, I mean people who stand up and everybody around them says, don't do that, man. You're going to be a pariah. You're going to be unpopular. You could lose your business. You could lose whatever. That's the foolishness that will confound the wise. That's the foolishness that the darkness won't be able to understand. And that's what we need. We don't have enough of that. And let me speak directly to preachers. You have a moral obligation, and you will have eternal consequences for not speaking out. If man's freedom goes away, and you were too afraid of losing somebody in your congregation or losing money in your congregation, you will pay eternally for that. We are on the verge of losing man's freedom, and peace and equal justice needs to be preached. It was the reason why we were free in the first place. The first people the British killed were the preachers. I got news for you. If the government ever really went bad and became tyrants, the last people they would kill this time are the preachers, because they ain't doing any good.
Right.
Stand up, preachers.
Right.
Remember who you are and the responsibility you hold.
And as you said, that God is our rock, and that's why that's our First Amendment right, is for freedom of religion. Glenn Beck.
It's time to wear as a badge of honor, as I said in the speech. Yes, Mr. President, I do cling to my God and my guns, because he's my rock, and guns are part of the foundation of what this country was founded on.
Amen. No argument here. Glenn Beck, we appreciate so much your time. Your book is Control. Your radio program comes on right after mine, and your website, The Blaze. I could go on and on. We only have 2 hours, but I appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
So much.
Have a great day.
God bless.
God bless.